and welcome to Nicole's Tips. In this installment, we'll have a look at Padmasana or Lotus pose. My 3 tips for this pose are: number 1, open up your hips. Number 2, bend your knees completely. Number 3, press through the pinky edge of your foot to protect your knees in Padmasana. So let's dive in. First, open up your hips. I'm going to show 2 different ways to open up your hips. The first one is a little bit more accessible. The second one requires a little bit more external rotation in the hips. So you can choose which one works best for you. This first one will require you to lie down on your back. And you'll start by hooking your right ankle over the top of your left thigh. And then you'll bring your legs up into your chest. So it starts here with this supine figure 4 stretch. And after a few breaths and it's starting to feel open, you'll lower the one foot down to the floor. The leg with the ankle that's hooked, you'll keep it here. And you'll explore bringing it into a lotus pose position. So instead of flexing the foot the leg that's hooked on top in this figure 4 shape, you'll point your foot, curl up as much as needed to grab onto the ankle, and you'll bend the knee, sliding the outer edge, the pinky edge of your foot up to the opposite hip crease. So coming more in this position. And then you'll stretch your knee towards the other edge of your mat, so down toward the direction of the other foot that's on the floor. Then you'll slowly guide it out and lower that foot down and switch sides. Same figure 4 shape, you'll bring your legs up into your chest. Find a stretch here, a few breaths. And then once that feels like it's opening up or opened up, you'll lower the foot back down, point your foot with the leg that's hooked on top, curl up, find the ankle, slide it in. And again, we're stretching the knee toward the end of the mat where the foot on the floor is closest to. And then you'll slowly release that side, supporting it and lowering your foot down. Okay, so that's option 1. Option 2 for the hip opener, it's similar, but it's seated. It is called Agni Stambhasana, fire log pose. Sometimes this is also called double pigeon. It requires you to stack one shin on top of the other, like so. Very important that you flex your feet to protect your knees. And this one can be challenging if your hips don't have as much rotation externally. Things that you can do is if you have a towel, you can place that as a spacer if the knee doesn't come all the way down onto the foot, or you could place a block in between in that gap too. So you can see I have a bunch of props over here just in case for something just like that. And so you'll spend a few breaths here. You might start to lean forward. Leaning forward increases the stretch. Taking several breaths. And then you'll come back up. Same thing here. It's kind of like a half lotus pose, half Padmasana. You'll point the foot that's on the top, slide it in, okay? And then you'll aim to stretch the knee down toward the other foot that's on the floor. So this will kind of work as a rest for your knee. We're just seeing how half lotus feels. And then you'll use your arms to support and slide the foot off, and you'll switch sides. Agni Stambhasana, second side. flexing your feet, pressing down to protect your knees. And again, stay more upright. It's generally a little bit more stretch as you start to lean forward. Forearms on your shins or even on the floor in front of your shins. You'll feel quite a bit more stretch on the hip of the leg that's on the top. And so you're just waiting, breathing, allowing the hips some time to open. And then when it feels ready, you come back up and point the foot of the leg that's on the top. Notice I'm allowing the knee to come up as I slide in. I'm not going to insist that it stay as low as it is. This makes it easier on the knee. So you want the foot to come all the way up to the opposite hip crease, and then you'll play around with lowering it down and resting it on the opposite foot. Coming into half lotus position. And then you'll use your arms to gently guide the foot off. Now, this second tip that I have for Padmasana is crucial. This really helps to protect the knees. If you're coming into Padmasana, into lotus pose, and you have, say, like this kind of gap between your lower and upper leg, your knee is really vulnerable. It's very likely to feel some pulling against the tendons that hold the knee together, tendons and ligaments that hold the knee together. So we actually want to protect the knee by closing the gap between the calf muscles and the hamstrings, the back of the thigh. So what this means is you'll bend your knees completely, as much as possible. And this helps to protect the knee. So we're going to come back into that same position. So like we're coming into Agnisthambasana, but this time we're just going to leave the bottom leg as it is. Bring the other leg up. And what you'll do is allow the knee to come up high. So in this case, it's my right knee. And you'll take your hands to the outer ankle and bend your knee until your heel's almost kind of close to your belly button. And you see no gap between your calf muscles and your hamstrings. Then you'll even lift that hip and turn a little bit so that you can really get the outer edge of your foot as high up toward the hip crease, the opposite hip crease, as possible. And then same thing as before, you'll lower the knee down to rest. And then the process is rinse, repeat. So full lotus pose, Padmasana, brings the second leg up and in. So what you would do is allow this foot to come forward and crawl it forward and see if the knee comes down to the floor without pain. If it doesn't come down without pain, you might actually use some support underneath the knee, and that might help it. Or you might decide that you're just going to stop at half lotus, which is really skillful. If everything is still going well here, what you can do next is you want to kind of slide in with this foot. Slide in and try to bend that knee as much as possible. Line up your ankles. So you see how now my ankles are pretty much lined up. My left ankle's right in front of my right. Then I can just slide up and cross it over ankle. And I'm in pose. To come out, you slide and slide. Keeping the knees really bent, not creating any torque by moving the lower leg. You're just going to slide. So to show the second side, this kind of helps to reinforce what we're doing. So you'll bring the bottom leg in that Agnisthambasana position, but then you'll lift the other leg up, leaning back. Bringing your hands to the outer ankle. Bring your heel in close to your belly button, and ensuring that there's little to no space between your calf muscles and the hamstrings on the back of your thigh. And then you'll lift that hip and even turn a little bit. in order to get your foot up as high toward the hip crease as possible. Once it's there, then you'll turn back, stretching the knee down and resting it on the opposite foot. Checking, making sure that this feels okay here, right? We don't want a lot of pulling at the knee. It's an indication that it's too much. If it's still feeling good, crawl the bottom foot out and stretch down more. See if your knee will come to the floor, and again, you can always offer some support underneath there. See if that helps. Now, we want the ankles to line up to bring the second leg in, so I'm actually going to widen the knee out, slide it in until the ankle's right in front. So my right ankle now is in front of my left ankle. Take my hands on the front of the ankle, lean back, and just simply slide up and over, bringing the second leg in. Again, this might be accessible. It might not. Every day's a little different too. So my last tip, and I'm going to stay on this side in order to show you, and then I'll go back to the first side. What can tend to happen is that the foot, when it comes into this position, there can be a lot of stretch on the outer ankle, which makes this pose not very sustainable and not very beneficial for the body. We don't want to overly stretch the outer ankle. It's not good for it. So if we see a lot of sickling of the foot, which I'm going to overemphasize it, a lot of this happening with the foot, that's not going to be good for it. So in order to counter that, what we want to do is press down through the outer edge of the foot. So this would be sickling a lot. What I'm going to do is press through the outer edge of the foot so that the ankle is more in line. Look at the difference even between this. And this is not necessarily super problematic at this point, but if you press through the outer edge of the foot, it's going to be way better. And where it really starts to make a difference is with this bottom foot, because it's kind of stuck in there. If I'm allowing the ankle to really kind of just sink down in and the outer ankle to stretch, this puts a lot of pressure right here. Now, watch what I do once I'm pressing down through the outer edge of the foot. So first of all, I want it to be as high as possible. And look, I'm pressing through the outer edge, and now my ankle is supported, and the support's all the way down to the knee. As I slide the second foot in, I'm going to press through the outer edge of the ankle too. So my feet are really active, and this helps to protect the ankles and the knees in this shape. So I'm going to again show the first side one more time. So bottom leg in position, bend the knee as much as possible, turn, place, stretch down, ankles lined up, slide in, and then once I get them both up, I'm really going to press through the outer ankles in order to support the whole shape. So I hope that this helps with your Padmasana practice. Please take it slow. Notice the sensations in your knees. If your body is telling you that half lotus today would be the perfect thing, honor your body in this shape. It's really important. All right. Thank you for joining me for Nicole's Tips.